A scholar is a person who pursues academic and intellectual activities, particularly academics who apply their intellectualism into expertise in an area of study. A scholar can also be an academic who works as a professor, teacher, or researcher at a university. In contemporary English usage, the term scholar sometimes is equivalent to the term academic and describes a university-educated individual who has achieved intellectual mastery of an academic discipline as instructor and as researcher. Moreover, before the establishment of universities, the term scholar identified and described an intellectual person whose primary occupation was professional research. How important should scholars be to a society that is serious about development? Well, scholars have generally been upheld as credible figures of high social standing who are engaged in work important to society. In Imperial China, in the period from 206 BC until AD 1912, the intellectuals were the scholar officials or scholar gentlemen who were civil servants appointed by the Emperor of China to perform the tasks of daily governance. In Nigeria, the Tertiary Education Trust Fund provides scholarships to academics and researchers of public tertiary institutions, contributing to the nation's mission of forging new dynamic approaches to capacity development and knowledge sharing in a developing world. It is an important component of TETFund's efforts to promote economic development and shared prosperity through investing in education, capacity building, and developing human resources. Since 2008, TETFund's scholarship programs have helped to form a pool of over 35,000 well-trained and experienced development professionals and scholars, transforming their country and positively impacting future generations. These are the chronicles of the journey to institutionalize research and development in Nigeria. Hello, and welcome to this edition of TETFund, The Paradigm Shift. I am Stanley Bentu. Now, if you were to take a tour of all the public universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education in Nigeria, you would be forgiven to believe that TETFund's sole purpose is infrastructure development. Now, this is because of the thousands of buildings bearing the name of the fund. But TETFund interventions go way beyond that. They are anchored on the following areas: normal intervention, library intervention, research grants, academic staff training and development, publication of journals, manuscript development, and conference attendance. Now, the interventions connected to the improvement of the academic faculty are those which are of great necessity to research and development. Now, one of those interventions is the TETFund Scholarship Scheme for academic staff. Let's learn more about this scheme, how successful it has been, and why the beneficiaries felt so inspired that they returned to TETFund not only to show appreciation, but to express their resolve to participate in the improvement of knowledge sharing in Nigeria.
About 35,000 scholars in public tertiary institutions have benefited in the TETFund Scholarship for Academic Staff program, which commenced in 2008. Acting Director of Academic Staff Training and Development, Abdullahi Imam, who stated this when the representatives of the TETFund scholars paid a courtesy visit to the Executive Secretary of TETFund, Architect Sonia Chono in Abuja, He said 185 billion naira has been expended for the project. He explained that the project was established with the sole aim of training and upscaling the educational capacity of the academic staff of beneficiary institutions, adding that the project is the second in expenditure after infrastructural projects of the fund.
The expenditure, it is the second with regard to expenditure after infrastructural component in the fund. In our efforts as a department, we actually want to showcase the significant impact in respect of capacity building of lecturers and to bring to the fore phenomenal numbers of scholars sponsored by the fund. We want to unite and nurture a bond of fellowship and harness their potentials for national development. We want to prove high values on return on investment. We also want to showcase their capacities, their competence, as well as to develop a database. We want to make the scholars available for national research activities and global collaboration. To serve as a voluntary advisory house on national research needs, institutional collaboration, as well as industrial partnership. We want to identify areas of specialization and pull them into a critical mass of knowledgeable workforce and change agent for national development, among other reasons. We sought for the former executive secretary's approval to have TETFund scholars alumni. He has graciously given us the approval, and we went ahead, contacted the beneficiary institutions in order to submit the names of their representatives so that we will have at least each scholar from each university.
Imam sought the Executive Secretary's approval to have a TETFund Scholars alumni, which he said would help identify areas of specialization and pull them into a critical mass of knowledgeable workforce and change agents for the development of the nation. He added that the alumni, through its planned journals on issues like innovation and entrepreneurship, science, engineering and technology, art, humanities and social science, would help to prevent or curtail intellectual flight.
So we are thinking of having TETFund Scholars Alumni Journal of Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We are also thinking of TETFund Scholars Alumni Journal of Science, Engineering and Technology. We are also thinking of TETFund Scholars Alumni Journal of Art, Humanities and Social Sciences. We also want a special consideration for the scholars to access postdoc, because most of them, particularly those that have done their PhDs outside the country, in UK and whatever, they have beautiful researches during their PhDs.
While also speaking on the plans to showcase the capacities, competence and the scholars by developing a database for the alumni, Imam noted that the scholars would serve as a voluntary advisory house on national research needs, institutional collaboration and industry partnership. Speaking on the reason for their visit, one of the scholars, Professor Kingsley Nwozo, stated that they were there to appreciate the fund for standing by them throughout the period of their studies, adding that though some of them were tempted to stay back after their education, they've decided to come back to the nation to prove their mettle and showcase to the world that the dream of TETFund was a well-thought intention.
We are here to say thank you to TETFund, to appreciate you, using you as a point of contact to other ES that stood by us and saw us through. This journey began in 2013 when a motoring team came to Aberdeen, UK to see us. Despite the challenges presented, we made a promise to that team. Boye was in that team, and some board members. We made a promise that we'll come back home and give back. We didn't plan to come back because of the bond we signed, but because of the sacrifice, the faith, the confidence repose in us. We are not chicks without a mother hen. So after our studies, many were tempted to stay back and start working in many places. We looked at the entire option and said, look, let's go back home first and prove our mettle and showcase to the world that this dream of TETFund is actually a well-thought intention.
He added that the alumni will not be a parasite to TETFund, but a source of revenue, adding that they wanted to translate their knowledge to national wealth. Responding, the Executive Secretary of TETFund, Architect Sonia Chono, promised to support the scholars wherever they needed help, adding that the first point will be to develop a database that will have all the names of the beneficiaries and their areas of specialization.
But ultimately, every successful alumni has to be driven by the members. You can't force it. So we thank you again for coming. We will continue to liaise with you. We will help you at this initial stage with what it takes for you to organize yourselves. You know, I keep repeating, that database is so important because it will have all the information, that present contact and so on. And per school, you're on your own, the interim ESCO, create an interim ESCO steering committee, who will now contact the institutions. The ones we have, the data we have, we should make it available to. And then you now begin to find who amongst them, even if you have 2,000 starting, it's a very good number. You can now begin to organize meetings, general meetings, consultative meetings. You can even do zonal, because they are all in the academia. You know, once you begin to do that, the interest will start growing. And then people like us, other members of yours who have become VCs or other things, will also begin to put back or give back. And from the positions you are going to have patrons, you are going to have even people who, I don't know, you are already fellows, I don't know what they call them. So work towards how you can build this organization. Your sacrifice will be recorded as pioneer.
This event is great in its significance for the paradigm shift of TETFund towards research and development, because the fund believes that these scholars are a vehicle through which the primary aim of improving the quality of teaching and learning in the higher institutions can be achieved. Beyond this, the TETFund scholars are pivotal to promoting applied research and making the outputs of such research touch the lives of Nigerians. When partnered with industry for scaling up, products and services born from research and innovation translate to tools that improve lives, generate income, and grow the economy.
So, we expect teaching and learning to improve as a result of this investment. But I think a good question to ask here is, why is education important anyway? I mean, you should really think about this. What is the purpose of education? The reason education is so serious that it is the subject of public policy in every single country on earth is because it has a direct link to the general well-being of the economy of every nation. It is the ultimate big picture objective. The implication of this is that a country cannot simply stop at educating its citizens to read and write and then go off on autopilot. Such a country would certainly eventually crash or simply be left behind. Education has to be dynamic and respond to the most pressing needs and growth objectives of a country. Curriculum review is often the best way to do this. The Executive Secretary of TETFund, Architect Sonny Echono, emphasized this as one of his areas of focus when he spoke to the paradigm shift.
Something we've also done in the last 10 years, as I said, is building the capacity of our scholars. Nigeria now has a huge body of teachers that have been trained and acquired specializations, additional qualifications in various fields. Again, you know, the issue with education that it doesn't happen in one day.
Yeah.
But these things have their way of permeating throughout the entire economy, and the benefits will begin to come in the years forward. So we've been able to train so many. We are promoting research. We are becoming big corporate citizens. And this is also reflecting, unfortunately, we are losing quite a good number of them. We've tried to strengthen the process. For those we sponsor, we try to make them sign bonds that give the minimum number of years you must work in the organization sponsoring you before you can be relieved from your bond. So we are also working with ministries of foreign affairs and our embassies and all that to ensure that we can enforce it. There was a time when even our capacity to absorb them was in question. So that created a window for them to say, okay, I've graduated, but you don't have a job for me. I applied to Unilag, I applied to ABU, and they didn't employ me. How can you ask me to stay back here? I have to go, I'm going to the US, I'm going to Canada, I'm going to the UK, and so on. But now we need them. And especially in those fields that are identified as areas of key critical national requirements in terms of skills gap. For those, we must retain here.
The TETFund boss has decried situations where scarce resources are used to train students that graduate for 10 years looking for government employment. And when they do get invited to interviews, employers would say that the graduates are not employable. Now, he said that there is a need to build a symbiotic relationship between the industry and the academia to ensure a seamless production of manpower needed to drive the nation's economy and even to produce in excess for export to other countries, insisting that Nigeria has a comparative advantage for that. Now, he added that TETFund beneficiary institutions would be encouraged to leverage information and communication technology, that's ICT, to improve curriculum delivery in the schools, saying that when COVID-19 struck, it took everyone by surprise. But the country was able to adjust with the help of technology as online teaching and learning platforms were promoted. Now, due to this, we should have positioned ourselves to deliver better graduates to the workforce.
The Executive Secretary of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TETFund, Architect Sonia Chono, has said it is imperative to develop an education curriculum which meets global standards, adding that educators should upskill to improve learning outcomes. He stressed the need for a digitized curriculum and improved pedagogy skills for the nation, not to lag behind in the Committee of Developed Countries. Architect Chono spoke at a capacity building workshop for colleges of education, organized by the National Commission for Colleges of Education, NCCE, and TETFund. According to him, the workshop, which has a scheme enhancing pedagogical skills and curriculum development for quality education delivery in Nigerian colleges of education, is aimed at equipping institutions to fulfill roles and enhance nation building. The Executive Secretary, who warned that an obsolete curriculum would result in stagnation and retrogression, stated that efforts must be made to improve educators. He described modern educators as facilitators of learning. Hence, they should be versatile in utilizing technology and expansive in their thought processes. Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Colleges of Education, Professor Paulinus Chijioke-Okwele, said quality educators are the focal point of quality education. Therefore, serious efforts must be put on training them in line with global best practices. Okwele noted that a well-articulated curriculum was key to addressing the challenges. The Vice Chairman Committee of Provost, Dr. Anene Obiako, said National Certificate of Education, NCE, should not go extinct, adding that it was the best level for pedagogy. Obiako also bemoaned the lack of enrollment in colleges of education despite TETFund's intervention.
TETFund's corporate objective is to provide funding for educational facilities and infrastructural development to promote creative and innovative approach to educational learning and service, to stimulate, support, and enhance improvement activities in the educational foundational areas, like teacher education, teaching practice, library development, and special education programs, and also to champion new literacy enhancing programs. Academic staff training and development is a critical part of that. Academic staff are required to change and adopt new teaching approaches to meet the requirements and expectations that were set by higher education institutions. Now, this means that there is a drastic need for academics to be competent, to help boost their teaching abilities and their knowledge, and to be encouraged to upgrade their qualifications. Now, without continuous, well-coordinated academic training programs, training and skills development, academics will continuously struggle to perform their core functions, which include research, teaching and learning, continuous professional development, and community engagement. Curriculum review, on the other hand, occurs at the end of a curriculum evaluation. The key purposes of the review are to decide what worked and what didn't, what needs to be modified and changed for the next time the curriculum is run. TETFund is keenly working with public tertiary institutions to successfully achieve both. And that is the paradigm shift. Join us again on the next edition of the program. But until then, thank you for stopping by. Good night.